Good morning. Hope everybody's gotten their breakfast. Good. Well, welcome to the July 14th, 2018 meeting of the Dallas chapter of the SAR. Filling in for our president, I'm Tom Van Fossen, filling in for Bill, who's at our national conference down in Houston, along with a number of our members, Jerry Brown and both of the founders. They're down there representing our chapter very nicely in Houston. To begin this morning, in the absence of our chaplain, I've asked Tom Whitelock if he would fill in and open our meeting. Would we all stand?
Before we get into the early morning prayer, I'd like you all to keep in your hearts and your minds and your prayers the past member of our chapter, D.A. Sharp, and his family. He recently passed away on the 12th, and this was an outstanding individual and well known throughout the state and the nation, and took great pride in his heritage. He traced everything from the Rockefellers to Kellogg's cereal to J.P. Morgan, and then some that we didn't even know. But he thought were important. And I believe he's an admiral in the Texas Navy and so forth. But more information on his memorial will be sent out to you shortly. If you bow now, dear Heavenly Father, we come to you today in grateful appreciation for all that you have done for us, those things that we know, and those things that we do not know that have graced our life. We appreciate very much our heritage and being able to celebrate that through our society. Be with us in this day and with those that are in harm's way, for those that are sick and ailing, and be with us as we travel, and be with us always in our minds that we remember your presence in our life. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you, John. It's my honor to introduce Strauss Scanlon, and I've asked him if he would lead us in the pledge of the U.S. flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Strauss. Marshal Scanlon, would you lead us in the pledge to the Texas flag?
Yes, sir. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one indivisible. Amen.
Mark Harrison, would you give us the affirmation of the SAR?
We descendants of the heroes of the American Revolution, who by their sacrifices established the United States of America, reaffirm our faith in the principles of liberty and our constitutional republic, and solemnly pledge ourselves to defend them against every foe.
And the best voice in the crowd, John Morton, would you lead us in America?
My country is of thee, sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing. Land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrim's pride, from every mountain side, let freedom ring.
Now let's do it again, and hear the voices come out. No.
I think you all recognize Lawrence well.
One and the two.
Yes. All right, thank you, John. Our hospitality chair, will you all be seated, please? If we can find Ralph.
Yes, sir.
Please tell us about your readers.
Yeah, summer's on better now. We're greetings. We hope we shook all your hands. And we hope you have a great day.
Thank you. Thomas, thanks for your help. I'm going to start around the room, and I'm going to start with this table over here, kind of a special table. Most everybody knows Marshall Scanlon because he's been a member for a number of years, but he's just transferred up to Austin a few months ago. But he has some special guests that he wants to introduce.
I am very proud to introduce my son, Ross Scanlon. He is a lieutenant colonel on active duty in the Army and has a tough duty assignment in Hawaii at the PACOM. And my grandson, Jacob Scanlon, are here. We're getting ready to, might even have to leave early, but we're going to the, by the way, Ross is president of the Hawaii. Yeah, he's president of Hawaii. And we're getting ready to leave and go down to Houston to the National Congress, so we may leave a little bit early. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. And Strauss, thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Okay. Mark, do you have any guests?
Well, and I'm still a guest too, but.
You're close.
And this is my wife, Linda Harrison.
Linda, welcome. Any more back here? Morning, Mike. Let's go to you, Jerry. You have a number of guests here.
I do. I have my wife, Judy. We've only been married 56 years. And then I have close friends over here, Patty and Jerry Timothy. And then Monty Monzingo, who is a member, but he's a close friend. And Monty, Patty, and our world.
They are all three war orphans and belong to that organization. Yes. Thank you all for coming. We appreciate it. How about in the back? Any guests? Okay.
Wait a minute, hey. My mom here, Brandy Sue Howard.
Yes.
Yes.
Randy, I was getting coffee with you. I'm sorry I looked over you, but thank you. Thanks very much. Okay. All right. This morning we're going to start a series of Americanism speeches, short vignettes, which I offer to everybody to get involved with because I learned some things myself. We're going to talk about the original 13 colonies and the flags that represent those colonies. So to start it off, Tom Whitelock's going to talk about our very first state.
We handed out today, like was advertised, a quarter for each of the states that are going to be presented in order to claim that we paid you to come to the meeting. But in those quarters, there's also signification and examples of why that state was honored. Delaware was the first to sign or ratify the Constitution, and so it was called the first state. I'm going to briefly skim over this so that we can save some time for Jerry's presentation. That's why I handed out the sheets for the three flags we're talking about, but basically Delaware is this first flag right here, excuse me. And it has a buff-colored diamond on a field with colonial blue with the coat of arms and the state of Delaware inside the diamond. Now, speaking of the diamond, the reason that it is called the Diamond State is because Thomas Jefferson had said that this was the jewel of our United Colonies. Delaware became the first state to ratify the United States Constitution, like I said, and the colors of the flag reflect the colors of the uniform of George Washington in buff and blue. And the coat of arms in the center of the flag was adopted on January 17, 1777. It depicts a shield of horizontal green, blue, white stripes. On the stripes are a sheaf of wheat and an ear of corn and an ox standing on grass, all representing Delaware's agriculture. Above the shield is a sailing ship. Supporting the shield are a farmer on the left and a soldier on the right. The state motto being liberty and independence. That's one of the fastest Americanisms you'll ever have. I'll now introduce Tom Van Fossen, who will talk about the next state.
Thank you, Thomas. Pennsylvania, that was the second state to sign the Constitution. Pennsylvania was the first organized as a colony by the Swedish and Dutch settlers in the 17th century before the English took control of the colony in 1667. 1681, William Penn established the colony based on religious tolerance, and it was settled by many Quakers, Germans, and Scotch-Irish, and along with the chief city of Philadelphia, which also became its first capital. Philadelphia was the nation's capital from 1790 to 1800. The design of the Pennsylvania flag goes back to the 1770s. It consists of a shield with an eagle representing the United States at the top, an olive branch, a stalk of corn crossed at the bottom. The shield is supported by rearing black horses harnessed in red. They stand on golden scrollwork with a red ribbon bearing Pennsylvania's motto. The motto is virtue, liberty, independence. The shield has three sections. The ship in the upper part represents the great amount of trade that Pennsylvania has carried around the world during its long history. The plow in the middle stands for the different kinds of implements or tools used in farming and other work. The sheaves of wheat symbolize the wealth from the abundant harvest, as well as the kind of wealth that comes from human thought and action. The shield appears on the seal, and the whole design is called the coat of arms of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania.
Guess who's back? Or Jack Nicholson would say, I'm home. Used to be a song kids would sing. What did Delaware boys? Well, she wore her New Jersey. So now I'm back at New Jersey. Before I get started on it, you see how simple this presentation is for Americanism? The sheet is already printed for you. The information is already printed for you. We have the quarters to attach. Now all we need is the volunteers for the rest of the year to pick a state or colony which represents where your patriot came from, or because you have an interest like I did in Delaware originally, in the fact that my great-great-great-grandfather was born in Wilmington, Delaware. And this will help Tom, for T2, to fill out the rest of the year for Americanisms. Now, if you will step up and do that, you'll get a gold star. I'll go down to the school supply house and get these little things that we put behind your name. New Jersey, this flag right here, is proud of the buff color of its flag. Coats and uniforms that General George Washington and New Jersey troops wore during the Revolutionary War had buff. As you've already heard, they used those colors often. The picture on the flag comes from the state seal. The women are goddesses from long ago, somewhat like the goddesses that we marry here today. The motto, liberty and prosperity. The goddess's liberty holds a pole with a liberty cap, which also stands for Ceres, stands for liberty or freedom. The Roman goddess of agriculture, Ceres, stands for agriculture or farming, which helped bring prosperity to New Jersey in the early times. She holds a cornucopia form or horn of plenty. The three plows also stand for agriculture, and the helmet shows that New Jersey governs itself. The horse's head stands for the horse as an animal that has long been important for the strength and speed in peace and war. The horse is now the state animal. The date of the flag is 1776, and is the date of the Declaration of Independence. Buff, Jersey blue are New Jersey state colors. Now, one of the things that should be noted, because of their agriculture and because they're known for so many fruits and vegetables, that's why it's called the Garden State, and not because everybody went there for the casinos. Thank you.
Tom?
Oh, wait a minute, one thing.
Yeah.
The quarters you received, there's an explanation of the quarters in the last page on the handout I gave you. It tells about why that was designed the way it was when they minted these starting in the 2000s. So that's for your information. And the list of the actual 13 colonies that ratified the Constitution is listed there. So you can cross off the first three and pick one of the remaining ones for your presentation. You heard that, Lord.
I am happy to say that this morning, before we got the proceedings started, two of our good compatriots have approached me. Mike Rodriguez, who's out there getting some coffee right now, and John Morton. They've already volunteered to do some Americanism speaking for, so that's the kind of volunteerism that I appreciate, and thank you for your help, gentlemen, in advance. Today, our speaker is compatriot Jerry Timmons. Jerry graduated from the University of North Texas in 1962. He has been a CPA for over 50 years. His professional career includes 26 years as an auditor with what is now Duluth and Twitch. 15 years as controller and consultant with the TXU Corporation and an acquired company, and 14 years that just ended last month as chairman of the audit committee of the board of directors of 3 publicly traded companies. Now you're retired. Jerry's been married to Judy Morgan for 56 years. They have 3 daughters, 9 grandchildren, and Judy is here today. Jerry has 3 proven patriots of the American Revolution. Mary Sandwich Colson from Virginia, who provided supplies to the troops. John Einzer, who was a soldier in the North Carolina line. And Alicia Garland, who has also served the North Carolina line as a private and participated in the battles of Brandywine, Germantown, Monmouth, and Guilford Courthouse. And Jerry, your patriot, and mine fought in the same battles. I thought that was a real coincidence. Jerry has been an SAR member since 2012, and he currently serves in his second year as our chapter's registrar. He stepped in for Jerry Brown, who moved up to the state level, and we thank you for that service. Jerry is the son of Ralph Pinkerton and Claudel Stewart, both born in 1919. They married in 1937 during the Great Depression. Jerry was born in 1940, and his sister Judy in 1943. Ralph, his father, was killed in action in 1945 in the Pacific War against the Japanese. He is the subject of today's presentation. Jerry was 4 years old the last time he saw his father, and almost 5 when the telegram was received that Ralph had been killed in action. About 20 years ago, Jerry began a search for information about his father. Over the next several years, Jerry met and interviewed 5 members of his father's Army unit that served with him, and most were involved with the action against the Japanese on the day he was killed. One man in particular, Edmund Dwyer, had written his memoirs of serving in World War II. Mr. Dwyer had served with Ralph, his father, from the time he boarded the ship in San Francisco to go to Leyte, and then to the landing beach in Mindanao, and then to the action where Ralph was killed. Mr. Dyer's book, augmented by Ralph's military records and interviews with men that served with him, provided the historical reference of Ralph's military experience, and the interviews with his mother and other close family members provided Ralph's personal background information. Jerry visited his father's grave in Manila, Army Cemetery, in the Philippines in 2007 and 2012. In 2012, Edmund Dyer and he and a guide followed the route on the island of Mindanao from the beach where the unit landed on May 10, 1945, to the village, and I hope I pronounced this right, Calbangules. I missed it, but you'll get it, I'm sure. Where Ralph was killed in action while manning his machine gun on June 14, 1945. Armed with this information, Jerry published a book in 2014 intended primarily for his family, children, and grandchildren about the life of Ralph Pinkerton, and it was entitled, My Father, More Than a Picture, a Bottle of Beer, and a Flag. Today, Jerry will speak to us as if his father was telling his own story. Jerry?
Before I start, we have some PowerPoint slides, but they're not showing up too well. You might, if you want to see the slides, you might need to reorient over to this side a little bit and try that. And I'm sure that Deloitte and Touche will forgive you for that name that you put on them, but
Okay.
and it is Cabang Lassane.
Of course it is.
Okay. Well, yeah. Some of it.
Monty, where were you when I needed you?
Okay. I am PFC Ralph Pinkerton. Today, June 14, 1945, I'm halfway around the world from my home in Newcastle, Texas, where my wife and my kids are. I was drafted into the Army last year when they first started taking married men with young children. I'm on the island of Mindanao in the Philippines, bivouacked near the small village of Cabang-Lasan. My unit is 4th Platoon of I Company, 3rd Battalion of the 108th Infantry Regiment. We are the weapons platoon. We have 2 30 caliber machine guns and 3 60 millimeter mortars that support our rifle platoons. I'm in charge of one of our machine guns. At 26, I'm one of the older guys in the unit. Other than our officers and our sergeants, the rest of the troops are 18 or 19-year-olds who joined up or were drafted right after high school. On May 10th, we landed on the north side of Mindanao. It was a routine amphibious landing. The Japanese did not offer much resistance. Our job was to clear out the remaining Jap forces in the northern part of the island and join up with the 31st Division that was fighting up from the south. We fought our way south, and on May 12, we captured the Del Monte airfield. This is the place from which General MacArthur left for Australia in 1942, and his PT boat escaped after his PT boat escaped from Correcto. The next day, we ran into strong opposition at Manima Canyon, and we were involved in heavy fighting for several days. On May 18th, we captured what we called Purple Heart Canyon because we had had so many wounded there, and we continued on down south. We joined up with elements of the 31st Division near Malay on May 23, and after that we had several days to rest and recuperate. On June 6, our battalion received orders to relieve units of the 124th Regiment up in the mountains east of us. At the same time, it began to rain pretty heavy. We drew 3 days K rations, put on our ponchos, and started up a trail east toward the mountains. After some R&R, we were back in the war again. On June 11th, we got to our destination, a very large clearing in the heavy forest not far from the Gavel-to-gavel River. We set up our perimeter, and the next day patrols started going out in different directions. We knew the Japs were out there, but we're hopeful we wouldn't get involved in any kind of major battle, because we didn't have any backup and our artillery was out of range. K Company got the job of continuing down the trail the next day. They went about 5 miles, and then they ran into an ambush. They were in a serious firefight and had to fall back. They suffered several wounded and had one soldier killed. But because of the heavy fire from the Japanese, they couldn't recover his body. They were pretty worked up when they got back to camp. When the K Company patrol came out of the woods, one of our outpost guards saw them and waved at them. A K Company man saw our guys and he started yelling, "Japs, Japs!" And they started firing at our men. They hit all 5 of our I Company men before an officer was able to stop them. We had 2 men killed and 3 wounded, including 1 seriously wounded in this friendly fire incident. It's hell to suffer casualties of any kind, but especially from your own troops. Today, our company is going out to retrieve the K Company KIA and bring him back. I hope the Japs didn't mutilate his body, as we've seen sometimes. We were up at about 600 hours. My breakfast was a K-ration tin of scrambled eggs with bacon bits. I mixed a small pack of instant coffee in my canteen cup with some water and heated it by burning the K-ration box. After finishing the hot coffee, I had a smoke and then filled my 2 canteens with water from the nearby stream. I added 2 water purification tablets to each canteen. They make the water taste funny even when you make coffee with it. Our last hot meal was over a week ago when we started out on this mission, which will be over in a few more days. I have the brasses okay to transfer to the cooks when we get back. I'm sure Claudel will be real happy when I get out of harm's way. I've been thinking a lot the last few days about how I came to be here on this hot, steamy, rainy, muddy island that only God knows how far it is to be out. It's been almost 8 months since I saw my wife and kids in Kenville. It's been months since I've heard anything about my brothers. Raymond is in the Marines, Ed Jr. is in the Navy. All I know is that they're in the Pacific somewhere. I hope they're well. I'll be so glad when this war is over and I get home to Texas and see my family again. I was born and raised in Newcastle and lived most of my life around there until I was drafted. Newcastle is a small town in north central Texas. It's about 100 miles west of Fort Worth. I attended public school there and completed the 7 elementary grades at a part year of high school before I dropped out at age 14. After I quit school, I started working odd jobs for spending money. When I got to be 16, I got my driver's license so I could drive Dad's truck and the family car. Claudel Stewart and I were 18 when we married in December 1937, which was in the middle of the Depression. I worked at any kind of job I could find. In the fall, I picked cotton. I worked for a while in a coal mine where Dad had worked, and I worked some as a carpenter's helper. I drove Dad's truck and would haul anything that anybody needed hauling. Claudel and my first child was stillborn in October 1938. Jerry Wayne was born in July 1940, and Judy Carolyn was born in February 1943. On December the 7th, 1941, we had just finished eating Sunday dinner and turned on the radio when we heard that the Japanese had bombed Pearl Harbor. Claudel was scared, and we talked a lot about what that might mean. The next day, we listened to President Roosevelt's speech on the radio about a day that will live in infamy. Jobs picked up after Pearl Harbor, and in 1943, I was hired at Consolidated Aircraft in Fort Worth as a riveter building B-24 airplanes. I worked there until I got drafted. I arrived training on June the 9th of 1944. Camp Walters is a large infantry replacement training center in Mineral Wells, Texas. I signed up for the government life insurance of $10,000 to provide Claudel and the kids with some money in case something happened. We were put through several days of processing, getting uniforms, shots, etc., and the training started. Since I was going to be in the infantry, I knew I needed to learn everything possible about my new job to increase my chances of surviving the war and getting back to my family. Just before we finished basic training, we heard that General MacArthur had landed troops at Leyte in the Philippines. They showed us on a big world map where the Philippines are and where the landing had been. I got a short furlough after my basic training. We decided it would be a good idea to have a family picture made. After a few days of visiting with family and friends, Claudel and the kids drove me to Fort Worth, where I caught the train to Fort Ord, California. Judy and Jerry were crying the last time I saw them. I arrived in Fort Ord on November 8th and was there for 3 weeks to get more advanced training. Then we were sent by train to Camp Stoneman, which is across the bay from San Francisco. Shortly after I arrived at Camp Stoneman, I had severe back and kidney pain and was in the hospital for several weeks. They did all kinds of tests and x-rays and blood work. My mail finally caught up with me right after I went to the hospital. I was in the hospital on Christmas and New Year's Day. I missed seeing Jerry and Judy play with the Christmas toys. I got pretty bored while I was recovering. I read everything that there was to read and I played rummy almost all the time. There was a radio in the hospital ward and we kept it on all the time. We listened to the Rose Bowl game on January the 1st, 1945. I wondered where I would be next New Year's. And I listened to another Rose Bowl game. Right after New Year's, I got the Christmas packages from my wife and my mother that I had been expecting. On January the 21st, they determined my condition was not serious and discharged me from the hospital. Right after that, I got orders to ship out in early February. We left Camp Stoneman on February the 6th and loaded on a ferry to take us to Pier 15 in San Francisco. We loaded onto the U.S. Army Transport Sea Snipe, a Liberty ship that had been converted to carry troops. The officers had cabins on the top side, and we enlisted were in the cargo hold. We had bunks about 8 high. The bunks were so close together you couldn't sit up. We left the dock just before dark and made our way through the harbor past Alcatraz, where Al Capone and other big-time gangsters had been sent. Then we passed under the Golden Gate Bridge. We didn't know where we were going. All we knew was that it was somewhere in the Pacific. At first the weather was cold and the seas were a little rough, and a lot of the guys got seasick. We had to take a life jacket with us each time we went on deck, and every day we had a lifeboat drill. We got hot meals for breakfast and supper, and a sandwich and sometimes fresh fruit at noon. To get our food, we enlisted men walked in 2 lines through the kitchen. We held out our mixed kits and were served without slowing down. It was an efficient way to feed the 2,200 men on board. The Sea Snipe is heavily armed. It has guns sticking out at every angle. It looks like it could find its way through a lot of opposition. There are hundreds of life rafts on the decks, in addition to the lifeboats that are ready to be thrown into the sea if we need to abandon ship. The route took us south of Hawaii. By the 4th day, the weather was warm and the seas were calm. Everyone was getting bored, and poker and crap games were going on almost all the time. After about 10 days, we crossed the equator. We were told that it is an old sea custom that all first-timers have to be initiated into King Neptune's court. The ship's crew and about every 100 enlisted men were chosen for gentle hazing and got their heads shaved. They were initiated by being soaked from the fire hoses, and then they turned the fire hoses on the rest of us. 2 days later, we crossed the international date line. Every now and then, dolphins would swim alongside us for hours at a time. We had a submarine scare on the morning of February 16th, and we zigzagged all day. No lights were allowed that night. The first land we saw after San Francisco was Guadalcanal. I had heard about this island back in 1942. It was the first time we had taken some islands back from the Japs. Then on February 23, we reached our first port of call, Binshaven, New Guinea. It's just thick jungles and high mountains with rain clouds all around it. It looks like the place that big ape King Kong might live. Next, we arrived at Hollandia, New Guinea, and joined the convoy that was being formed. It consisted of about 20 ships. There were escort destroyers, supply ships, navy tugs, a hospital ship, and other troop ships, and they were spread out all over. On March 4th, we reached our destination, the 4th replacement depot in Tacloban Lake in the Philippines. This is the island where last October, General MacArthur's troop first landed to liberate the Philippines. Our voyage was nearly 9,000 miles, and it lasted almost a month. After 10 days, we got our shipping order, and we were loaded onto Navy LSTs and LSMs and left for Ormoc on the west side of the lake. Our route took us around the southern side and about halfway up the west side. There were almost 2,000 of us, so it took a small convoy of ships to carry us all. We went through the Lady Gulf, where the Navy had the big sea battle last October. After reaching Ormoc, we were assigned to the 108th Infantry Regiment of the 40th Division. The 3 regiments of the 40th Divisions had been part of the invasion of Luzon in January. After about a month of combat, they were given a rest. Over 1,000 experienced soldiers from the 108th Regiment were transferred to the other 2 40th Division regiments to bring them up to strength. Then the 108th was sent to Ormoc to be re-outfitted and get reinforcements. We got off the ships, we were called into formation and given our assignments. I was assigned to High Company, which is part of the 3rd Battalion. We were trucked to the company area, and all we found were a few tents, a few officers, and some NCOs. We were immediately assigned to platoons and squads. I was assigned to the 4th Platoon and one of the 2 machine gun squads. The platoon also had 3 mortar squads. All of us were issued a Colt 45 automatic handgun for personal protection, since we couldn't carry a rifle in our heavy weapons. The 1st, 2nd, and 3rd platoons are rifle platoons. 3 12-man squads plus NCOs and a lieutenant. Rifle platoon squads had M1s, 1 or 2 BARs, and the platoon sergeant had a Tommy gun. The Japs mostly had bolt-action rifles and not many automatic weapons, so a rifle platoon had a lot more firepower than the Japs did. After a week in Ormoc, we were ready for our first mission. The regiment was split into its 3 battalions and scattered up and down the coast. Our 3rd Battalion consists of companies I, K, L, and M. The 108th had about 1,000 new troops that were untested in battle. Our NCO told us that we would be doing our advanced training, but reminded us that our targets would shoot back. The Japs left on Lady had been hiding in the jungle and were almost out of food and supplies. Our troops had control of the forts, so they couldn't get any supplies by sea. They had started raiding villages and ambushing army convoys. Our job was to search out and destroy the best soldiers, the Jap soldiers that were left. When we went out on patrol, we took 9 boxes of K rations, 3 for each day. Each box was a little bigger than a Cracker Jack box. The contents were sealed in a waterproof wax, which was then placed inside a cardboard box with printing on it to identify it as either breakfast, dinner, or supper. When we were indoctrinated upon assignment to the unit, it was carefully explained to us that we do not take prisoners. The Japanese did not ratify the Geneva Convention, and they did not believe in taking prisoners. We knew that they had killed many prisoners at the Bataan, Death March, and throughout the war. By the end of April, we had found most all of the enemy strong points. Our unit was relieved by the 1st Philippine Infantry, and we moved back to the Yapa. They told us that the regiment had killed 1,007 of the enemy, while we suffered 15 KIAs. Some of those killed on Lazy were from our battalion. We quietly watched as the men were cleaned up and wrapped in their shelter hats and buried in shallow graves. A small wooden marker was placed on the grave. The location of the grave was marked on the map so that the fallen men could be found when the recovery teams came to move them to the military cemetery. The company commander conducted a short service in which he honored the fallen men and read passages from the Bible. Afterwards, we thought about these men, wondered about the families they left behind. Were they married? Had any children? And no longer had a father. We knew there would be a lot of grieving somewhere back home when their family gets word of their death. On May 1, all of us privates were promoted to PFC. We got our first strike and first pay raise. Also, as of May 1, we were told we'd been awarded our combat infantryman's badge. Then the regiment was transported back to Ormont, where we spent the time cleaning and repairing our equipment and drawing supplies for the previous landing. On the afternoon of May 9, we loaded onto about 40 ships to take us to Mindanao. We arrived at Mindanao just after daylight on May 10. Minesweepers had cleared the area before the landing. Philippine guerrillas controlled the landing zone, and very few of the troops were expected near the beach. Prior to the landing, destroyers had bombarded the shore. Our 3rd Battalion was the 3rd wave of troops to land. The first wave hit the beach with no opposition about 08:30. The second wave was right behind it. About 09:30, our LCI beached, and we walked down the ramps in the shallow water. The Ormont group had been together for 2 months now, and we thought it enough to be pretty good. The Japs had decided not to defend the landing. The only opposition had been a few ragged volleys of rifle fire, which the first units on shore quickly took care of. All of us were pretty loaded down with supplies. The riflemen carried about 30 8-round clips of M1 ammo and 6 hand grenades. The machine gun and mortar squads also carried a lot of extra ammo. We were supposed to have a 3-day supply of everything. After capturing the Del Monte airfield and Manima Canyon, we continued south and joined the elements of the 31st Division. After that, we had several days of R&R, some hot chow, and hunter mate. Then on June 6th, our 3rd Battalion received its orders to relieve units of the 124th. We met the 1st Company of the 124th Regiment coming out and stopped for a short time to get information from them. They had only about 75 men, which is about 100 men short of authorized strength. We were down to 150. We thought that was bad enough. We were in the mountains, some 20 to 30 miles east of Malay. Mindanao is mostly unpopulated out here. There's no road system to speak of off the main Sayre Highway. Area is heavily forested. We walked all the way single file of small trails that were not even wide enough for a Jeep to drive on. We forded waist-deep rivers and it rained almost every day. But about every 3rd day, we'd have to find a clearing between the mountains that would be large enough for an airdrop. We would mark the drop zone, then a C-47 flew over, and each pass they would shove out a pallet full of supplies without parachutes. Usually it was ammo and K rations for the company for 3 days. Once a box of grenades was dropped and shattered when it hit the ground. The cotter pins came out and grenades exploded all over and everybody had to duck for cover. We saw another unusual sight. The 124th had a jammed prisoner they were bringing out. One of our guys yelled at the prisoner, "When you get back to Tokyo, you tell Hojo we're going to come and get that SOB." The prisoner answered in perfect English, "You will probably get there before I do, so you tell him yourself." The prisoner was an American-born Japanese who had gone to Japan just before Pearl Harbor to visit his relatives. He was drafted into the Japanese army, and because of his good English, he was serving as an interpreter. He had graduated from UCLA, and his family still lived in the LA area. We had no trouble getting to the spot where K Company had been ambushed. They found the KIA and put him on the stretcher to take back. In the meantime, Our forward scouts had moved off the trail for a short distance, and they came to an opening of a large clearing. They stopped and tried to see what they could do without exposing themselves to enemy fire. The CO must have given some thought about moving out a little more. We had not been fired on, and no one could observe any of the troops. Our company commander sent orders back to send the 2 machine guns to the front to furnish covering fire for any further advancement. So Watsky and I took our gun, tripod, and ammo and moved up to the tree line on the right side and set up our weapons in the best cover we could find. Everything was as quiet as it could be, but we were sure there was Japs around there somewhere. All of a sudden, all hell broke loose. We began receiving fire from multiple Jap machine guns, and mortar shells started raining down on us. I immediately started firing the machine gun. The forward riflemen and those behind us jumped off for what cover they could find. Some got into a small ravine, but most were flat on the ground. The trees were higher than utility poles, so the mortar shells were hitting them and exploding high enough in the trees to hold down danger from them. The Jap machine guns were giving back and forth traversing fire about 3 feet off the ground, which was keeping the riflemen on the ground, and they could only move around by crawling. The riflemen were returning fire as best they could, and Jap bullets were flying all around. Watsky and I were in an exposed position, but we kept sweeping the area with machine gun fire at any muzzle blast, hoping to take out the Jap machine guns, and as many other Japs as we could. Lieutenant Allen was up front. We heard him over the gunfire giving orders to pull back. We kept firing to cover the men as they pulled back. Then I heard Watsky yell, "I'm hit," and he let out a groan. Out of the corner of my eye, I could see he was slumped over, bleeding profusely and not moving. I had been hit too, but was able to keep firing. Then I felt a burning sensation all over my body. So that is how my dad was killed. June 14, 1945. He is buried in the Manila American Cemetery with about 17,200 others that died in the Pacific region. And there are over 36,000 names. They are also on the tablets of the missing. Thank you.
What's your food?
Yeah, I'll see.
As difficult as that was for you to do, to tell that story, it's a beautiful story, it's well written. And it sounded like your dad wrote that. We'd like to thank you.
Let's go around front.
Right here. We'd certainly like to thank you for the effort you put into this and telling us such a moving story. And usually we give away the literature, but I think this is more suited for someone who tells a story like that.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I have, if you didn't notice, I have put pictures of, well, of the memorabilia there. One is my father's picture, one is the flag that was draped over his coffin in Manila when he was very defiant of the building. And the one in the middle is a beer bottle. It has a story about it, about it's a linking on. I know from this conversation that the person that found it was there when my dad drank it in 1944 before we met. And he threw these in the bushes and went back on the old farm one day and found these. And so that's Ralph's beer bottle that he drank from in 1944. Well, I got it in 2005.
That's tremendous. Thank you.
Copy
again.
both. I forgot. The copy of the book will be in the drawing back there.
Oh, I forgot to tell you that. A copy of his book that he just read to you is going to be one of our door prizes tonight. So you get the lucky ticket, that's what you get. Okay, something I'd just like to recognize this morning. We've never done this before, but I think it's time that we recognize the person who came the longest distance to this meeting. And you're not going to guess who it is.
It's the guy that's in the bathroom.
Yes, and he's coming a long way. People would think it would have been Mr. Scanlon's son who helped us this morning, but I was corrected. It's his grandson. It's Jacob. Jacob, you need to stand up. The reason he came the longest distance is because I said, well, if you all came from Hawaii, that's an automatic winner. And his father said to me, no, Jacob's bedroom is on the west end of the house. So he came 20 feet longer than I did. So you're the winner, Jacob. And as I explained, you did nothing, but that's okay. You win the honor. And stepping in for president, as you know, Bill's at the national conference down in Houston. So there's really nothing to report from his report. On my report, the first vice president, I'm happy to tell you that next month is going to be another stirring discussion. Going to go to a little different.
They don't want to.
Oh no, I'm sorry. Anybody that has to be, please be excused. I certainly understand. This is just the business of the day. So thank you. And again, thanks for coming today. You're welcome. Next meeting in August, we're very fortunate to go to a little different century. And our compatriot Warren Johnson, who's here today, is going to be telling us about General Lee's statue in Lee Park. And he's got a great story. Don't miss it. Okay? Robert Tanner's not available today. Secretary Tom?
The minutes were posted and are on the tables, distributed. Ask for a motion of approval for the minutes. So moved.
So moved. Second?
Second.
A second. All in favor?
in favor? Thank you.
Okay. Treasurer Nick? As Nick, as usual, is right on board with the statement that's been handed everybody on the table. Jerry, I don't believe there was anything that you had this morning, but
I don't know. I have two certificates. Trace Taylor and Justin Long. Did they show up today? But when they show up, we will have the induction.
fine. When they get here, we'll give it to them.
And
Thank
we've
you.
got several more in process, but it's going to be probably a month or more before you come through.
Love that. Thank you for your work. Joe, anything from the historian?
Yeah, I got nothing.
You know, that's wrong, because a couple months ago I got to do a little talking. You sent me a copy of me talking. I didn't realize how bad I looked. I appreciate the work that you do, as we all do. And again, we need to find a time where you and I can get together and maybe do a little synopsis one day where we can show some of the stuff that you've done in the past. I think that'd be a great opportunity. Perfect. Okay. Chapman Founders is in Austin. Committee reports. Membership, Ralph Liddell.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Vice President. Well, our membership is about 250. We're still working on a few that we almost to the end of that. I do have a check today for Kroger's, so I want to thank all of you that shop at Kroger's. The check is not as great as the last one. Last one I did was $61. This was only 26, so get down that Kroger's.
That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ralph. John Morton, you have a number of reports. Please be my guest.
The main thing is thank everybody for donating to the VA. I mean, the last 3 or 4 months, it's been unbelievable. We've got tons of stuff. Every once in a while, they take stuff in, and items, coffee and all that. I want to thank everybody. It's amazing what our chapter.
And thank you for being the delivery guy. That's,
I love
color guard, Robert Kittrell.
Yeah, of course, there've been a number of parades that color guards been involved in the past 6 weeks. The parade at Dennis, the Olive Murphy parade, the Park Cities parade, and also the Lake Highlands parade. So July the 4th, there is a Revolutionary Soldier dedication in Corsicana. Out in August. August the, what was that thing again?
August the 11th, the next,
That's right.
meeting date, right afterwards, in Corsicana.
And that's basically, except, just keep in mind, we need volunteers for Fair Park and the St. Nicholas Chapter House, sign in, members, and representing in our moments, we have enough people. There's always a problem getting enough people to serve and to wait on potential volunteer people that are not members to sign in.
And what
Starting
are
in September.
we were at the DFW cemetery.
That's another. Yeah.
This World War II soldier who just recently, his remains have just been identified with.
Private Ken Ferris, who was killed in World War II.
Exactly.
Yes, Mike?
He was listed on the wall of the missing, the same cemetery where my father and 2 cousins were buried.
Really?
In the Netherlands, yeah.
Wow. Well done.
And then we'll have a rosette place next to
For the
it.
Liberty Bell, although it's not part of the color guard, due to former chapter president Bob Northcraft's health and other reasons, the Liberty Bell, now communications go to the White family. The David Hall family is no longer involved in it, and it takes a lot more coordination and long lead time to get the Liberty Bell to your event. For instance, it was not involved with the July 4th parade in Park Cities, despite me trying to get it 2 months earlier. So if we're going to use a Liberty Bell for the Veterans Day parade, for instance, I would suggest starting now to let the White family know that it's needed. They're being a little more picky on which venues they choose to have the bell attend.
Excellent suggestion. Thank you, Mike. Hank, move on with that. Hank's here. That's nice. Nick, anything to report on the CAR or any of that?
You have a resident foreign correspondent.
She got a green card?
Well, as some of you know, I announced that my granddaughter is going to be president of the David Pendleton chapter this year. And so we attended in Waco last month the first general meeting of the new calendar year. And as you know, Travis, who is a member of David Pendleton, and you've met him before, is the new state CAR president. And he announced the theme for the year, and we're going to be working on the 59 signers of the Texas Constitution. And they're trying to fix a wall down in Washington, Nebraska, and tell more about the signers of the Texas Constitution. And then I know the national theme is going to be honoring veterans of all wars. So that sort of fits in with what we were going to do at Fair Park, when we have the, when we honor the veterans there at the wall. And we're going to be telling about each war and the different veterans. So they're going to be looking at all the wars that we have veterans in. So we're busy, and hopefully they are meeting, some of them this week in Houston. And then in August, we have another state meeting to talk more about our state project.
Thank you.
For the cause, is there any old business we need to bring up and discuss? No old business, all right? How about for the chapter, any new business that we need to discuss? Well, I think with that, we could probably do right.
Yes.
And if we're going to do that, I'd like to have Jacob come up and join me, because I need some help with this one. Just to think that we didn't forget you. Put that in your pocket, okay?
Thanks for coming along with us.
What I'm going to have you do is I'm going to have you pull these numbers out, including your own if it's in there. And as you do it, hand them to me, and then we'll read who the winner is. Okay? All right, how many prizes have we got there, Nick? 8. Okay, so we're going to do this 8 times. All right, ticket ending in 044. We've got a winner right back here. Okay.
Go to the bottom, Jay.
Ticket 030. We've got a winner. All right. Way to go, Mark. Ticket number 024. Jacob. You want him to pick it? You can come up here.
Go pick it, Jay.
That way you can get what he wants.
I'm near smart.
Dexterity is the only thing required up here. 057. 057. There you go, Jim. 031. Mark, oh, got a family affair. All right.
Good thing they didn't bring the kids.
That's true. 035. Got one here. All right. 033.
Take.
Yes. He wants you to earn your money. Okay. And let's see, how many we got here? 6, okay. Two more. Yeah, that's bad. All right, how about 026? Jake. Hey. Okay. And the last one. 043. Perfect. All right. Thank you. Appreciate it. Secretary Tom, would you lead us in the benediction, please? All rise. Oh, I'm sorry, Mike. Go ahead.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman. Today is Bastille Day. As the French helped us tremendously in the Revolutionary War, I would say that we honor the French by saying, Vive la France!
Vive la France! Well done, Mike. If you all stand, will you lead the benediction?
Dear Heavenly Father, again we thank you for allowing us to collectively get together and to enjoy our heritage and the particularly fantastic presentation by Jerry on his father. Let us always remember those that have sacrificed their liberty for our freedom and for their sacrifice
for our country. Keep us in thy graces. Let's always be mindful of thy presence in our life as we travel for the month ahead. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. While you're all standing, please join me in the SAR recessional. Until we meet again, let us remember our obligations to our forefathers who gave us our Constitution, the Bill of Rights, an independent Supreme Court, and a nation of free men. We are adjourned.